One of the major questions faced by beginner content creators when looking to purchase a camera is the question of DSLR or mirrorless. And I get it, because if you're going to get a camera, you probably want to do it right the first time. So, DSLR versus mirrorless. What's the good and what's the bad? Is either better than the other? Let's talk about that. What's up, y'all? Daniel here, and today it's the battle of the DSLRs versus the mirrorless cameras. You probably want to know exactly what the difference is between these two types of cameras and how their differences may affect your buying decisions. In this video, we're going to be talking about all of that, and to help us navigate, we're going to break down the comparison into 4 major criteria. The first one being the cost. If you're on a budget or you're looking to save some money, is there an option that would work better between the two different kinds of cameras? Number 2 is going to be the weight and size. Do these matter when purchasing the camera? Number 3 would be the function. With all of the changes in tech, is there one of these cameras that's a better fit in today's world? And our number 4 criteria would be the lens selection. After you purchase your camera, what options do you have when it comes to lens selection? We're going to be covering all of these questions, and at the end, I'll give my honest opinion as to what I think is really good practice whenever you're deciding what may be the best option for you. Before diving into all of those, let's take a second to talk about the actual difference between these two cameras from a technical point. To put it very simply, the difference would be their technology. Now that's obvious, but let me explain. The DSLR cameras use a mirror to help reflect light from the lens of the camera to the camera viewfinder. So when light would pass through the lens, it would hit a mirror that would then reflect that light to another mirror, or in some cases a pentaprism, which would reflect the light again towards the viewfinder of the camera. And what is in front of the lens will then be seen by the person who's handling the camera. On the other hand, the mirrorless cameras don't have those mirrors. They simply have an electronic sensor. When light from the lens hits the sensor does its little technology thing and sends that light information to the EVF, that's the electronic viewfinder, and that is where the camera handler can see all of that information in real time, kind of like a TV. Except in real time. That is the technical difference between the DSLR and the mirrorless camera. With that out the way, let's talk about how that may affect your buying decision. Starting at number 1 with the costs. Because mirrorless cameras are relatively new to the market, they have newer technology, so automatically that kind of puts them in the more expensive bracket. That also leaves us with the older DSLR cameras becoming cheaper simply because they're older, not necessarily because they don't work as good anymore. Now, depending on your budget, that could be a make or break for you, and that's okay. That being said, it's easy to see that if we were to stack DSLR versus mirrorless cameras just based on cost, well, the DSLRs might take the win just because you can find more options at a lower price range. And sometimes that may be what you need to get started. You don't always have to beat the bank to get started. Now we're going to talk about this a little more, but just for right now, we'll move on to the second criteria for comparison. Let's talk about the size and the weight. I'm gonna get straight to the point with this one. Mirrorless cameras are generally smaller than the DSLR siblings. So if you pull up a mirrorless beginner camera against a beginner DSLR, the mirrorless will be more compact, more lightweight, making it more travel friendly due to the newer technology. As mentioned earlier, the mirrorless one does not have the big mirrors that are contained in the DSLR camera, so that automatically gives a win to the mirrorless cameras in the size and weight class. Moving on to our third criteria, talking about the function of each camera type. In all honesty, I find it kind of tricky when we use the word function to put a camera against another camera. Because in my opinion, and this is my opinion, the function of a camera is to capture an image, whether that's photo or video. Now, whether the image turns out good or not has to do a lot with the person behind the camera. It has to do a lot with the amount of light present, as well as the lens being used to capture the said image. And then the camera. For example, the team at Full-Time Filmmaker, they're a great YouTube channel for anybody who's looking to get into filmmaking. They show this pretty well with their beginner versus pro series, where they put together a beginner filmmaker with all the professional gear, and then they have them go head to head against a professional filmmaker with just beginner gear. And you find that most times, the pro still comes out with better work. My point is, there's more to creating good photos and videos. It's not just about the gear involved. I think both camera types do the basic function of capturing images very well. But if I'm to keep it 100% real, because of the newer technology that is present in mirrorless cameras, they tend to have more functions than the DSLR. For example, some of these cameras even have facial recognition technology where you can literally register a person's face with the camera and have the camera prioritize that face for autofocus. So simply put, a function, I'd have to give it to the mirrorless bunch. Now let's go ahead and move on to the lens selection. Speaking about lens selection, this one is actually going to be quick and easy. DSLR cameras have been here for longer, so naturally over time they have accumulated a wider variety of lens selections. Now as time goes by, newer lens options have come up for the mirrorless cameras, but if you're looking to have a wide variety of lenses for your shots right now, DSLRs would be the way to go. I want to say that for most people who are just getting started, if we were to base our choice only on lens selection, I'd say it's fair game on both sides. And the reason for this is that since you'd find most beginner lenses and say the first few lenses that most people get as they build their collections on both sides, I'd say it's fair game. But in its entirety, DSLRs have a greater selection than their mirrorless brothers. Here's my honest personal opinion. If I were a beginner looking to choose one of these today, this is what I wish that someone had told me. If I have a budget that would let me accommodate a good quality mirrorless camera, I'll say go mirrorless. It's that simple. It's newer, it integrates better into the whole technological ecosystem that we're building right now. So yes, if you're able, go for it. On the contrary, if your budget won't let you that much room, I'd say go DSLR. Simple like that. Because really, when it comes to functions, DSLRs are still very much in the game. You just want to be sure that you pick the right camera for what you want to do. And of course, that statement fully applies also to mirrorless cameras. You want to make sure you're picking right every time. Some people get caught up on the negatives of the DSLR as compared to the mirrorless, but DSLRs have served for so long and lots of professionals still use them today. And so it's almost still fair game. And on the topic of size, yes, DSLRs are bigger than their mirrorless counterparts. But in all honesty, it could sometimes be a thing of preference. My personal preference is bigger cameras because I find them to be more comfortable to operate. Again, that's my preference. It may be different for you, so feel free to try both out. To anyone who's looking to just get started, the truth is, you get used to whatever camera you purchase. So, if you purchase a DSLR, you'd quickly get used to the weight and size of it. Easy. And yes, they can get heavy when you're shooting actively for 4, 5, 6 hours straight, but how often does that happen? Really. In summary, I'd say get whatever you can afford and begin creating with that. Of course, you can change it along the way as you get better with your craft. I hope this video contained the information that you needed to get started or to narrow down your search or hopefully make a choice in what type of camera you may want to get. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. And if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe. And of course, if you want to see more content like this, let me know what questions you would want answered in future videos. My name's Daniel, signing out. You have a wonderful day. Cheers.